Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering Fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Mastering Fundraising, the podcast where we explore the strategies, mindsets, and real world lessons that help fundraising professionals grow in their craft and lead with clarity and confidence. Today, we're tackling a topic that nearly every nonprofit leader has wrestled with at some point, and that is the retention of major gift officers and the process of interviewing for that role. Major gift work is relational, strategic, and long term. And when you get the right person in the seat, the impact is extraordinary. When turnover happens, the cost is not just financial, it's relational, it's cultural, it affects donors and internal teams alike. So, to help us unpack this, I'm joined by someone who has spent years building and leading philanthropy teams. Chad Petticord is a vice president of philanthropy at the Catholic Leadership Institute. Chad, welcome to Mastering Fundraising.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate the time and having me on.
You bet. Well, there's no one better to take us through this topic than you. But
Yeah,
before we
we'll see.
jump into, hey, don't laugh, it's true. Before we jump into the world of MGOs, I'd love for our listeners to understand a bit about you and your leadership journey. Can you tell us a little bit how you came to your role at the Catholic Leadership Institute?
Yeah, actually, I had some experience with Catholic Leadership Institute many years before I reached out to them and applied for a position. I had attended one of their events in Philadelphia and was just super impressed by um, the organization, by what I thought it was that they did, and having been to probably hundreds of events at that point, it caught my attention. So I sort of registered it as something to think about. And, at the time it wasn't relevant, but then I started looking for my next opportunity. And I was actually at Mass, sort of praying and discerning about what was next for me. And I remembered that experience and I looked them up, their website, and the front page of the website was the position for vice president of philanthropy. And a couple weeks later, that was the answer to my prayer. So that's how I got to Catholic Leadership Institute, at least on paper.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, what drew you into fundraising initially?
Yeah, it was totally by accident, honestly. Yeah, I was bartending in college and was thinking about going to law school and had a captive audience and an alum. I went to Fairfield University up in Connecticut, and I had an alum in the bar, and he was a lawyer, so I was trying to get myself a job. And he was just a private practitioner, so he didn't have anything. He said, "But I have a friend that has this company, and they do something that you might be sounds like you might be good at." And like the next thing you know, I'm in fundraising consulting and assigned to a project in Springfield, Massachusetts, and that's how it happened. I had no idea what it was really. And I mean, let's face it, it was 1999, so like I don't think that fundraising and philanthropy really had the profile then that it does now. So it was sort of a new thing, and that's how I got into it, and I've been involved in it ever since.
Yeah, well, when we got started in fundraising, like so many people, you had to explain what that was, what that
Right.
meant, right? And now it's not necessary all the time to do
Yep.
that. It's much more ubiquitous, I suppose.
Very true.
Well, that one chance encounter at the bar in college turned into um, decades, right, of work in that field, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Careful, yes. I am
Yeah,
getting much older and I'm struggling with a big number this year mentally, which I will get
good.
through. But yes,
You
it
will.
is decades of fun in philanthropy.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And you and I share this similarity too, this idea while we were in college that we would go to law school. And until we both found something fundraising that turned that idea on its head. Well, was leadership something you always envisioned for yourself?
I don't know. That's hard to think about. And certainly not in 1999. I didn't think about leadership at all. And I was just thinking about how I was going to pay my bills and move out of my parents' house, really. And
Yep.
so I don't, I think if you get into leadership and you do it for the purposes of being a leader or you have some designs on being a leader, I worry sometimes that you develop the wrong traits to do that. I think if you if you work hard and you care about people and you care about organizations and you want to do the right thing, that in many cases that leadership can come very naturally. And I would just say that I think, if you were to consider me a leader now, it's as a result of really, I think, just almost throughout my career, baptism by fire in getting responsibility that I never deserved at that point in my professional career,
Mm.
and just learning how to deal with it and try to do a good job, and ultimately then obviously having done this now for decades, and um, having worked with some teams, and have enjoyed the opportunity to work with other people and really help them develop, right, as people, as professionals. And so that's part of what makes this great and what makes it a fun thing to do, because there are so many people that are interested in this as a career, in this as a
Yeah.
vocation, and helping not-for-profits accomplish their mission. So helping those individuals develop and do that better is fun. And so if that's leadership, great.
That's well said. And I like the idea that you put forward, the concept, the philosophy that you put forward, that if you keep the mission front and center, and you do a good job and you try to do your best, will naturally help a leader emerge,
Hmm.
or for someone to become, a leader if they also have some of those capabilities and characteristics. I'm interested to know if there were some early experiences that really shaped how you lead today.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. This maybe is a little bit cliche. I would give my mother some credit, as
Why
having.
is that cliche? That's beautiful and absolutely appropriate.
Yeah, I mean she was a leader. She was a natural leader in her own way, and even by the end of her career, got really involved in being the leader of a not-for-profit organization. And I think, having watched her in her roles and how she talked about those roles and the things that she did, and the way in which she approached her work, I think had a lot to do with what I then tried to incorporate. She would give me advice along the way, and some of the first books I read about leadership or leading teams or understanding people were ones that she had recommended or had read and said, "Why don't you read this?" I think the experiences that I've had, I mean, I just think, again, back to the point about responsibility, I'm grateful. I was given leadership responsibilities really early in my career, so I really had no choice but to figure it out. And
Mhm.
whether it was leading a team or it was helping to lead an organization to serve their mission. I don't know that there's one or two instances, but sort of a litany of these times where I was I was given these doors or had these opportunities to lead something or a team, and again just really worked hard at it and cared about doing it well,
Mhm.
and trying to absorb whatever I could, and trying to take what I had seen from others, right? So trying to learn from others that I had the chance to interact with and see how
Sure.
people respond to them and their leadership. So I think it's that throughout my career that has helped me um, to develop some of the behaviors that I have now.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to transition into the conversation we want to have about retaining and hiring great major gift officers. And as you reflect on your journey, those doors that you ultimately were provided and walked through, what are the leadership lessons that most influence how you build and manage a team today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just again, this may be a little bit cliche, but you have to be willing to walk the walk or lead by example or do the things that you are looking for others to do, right?
Right.
So, if you want a major gift officer to want to have a desire to learn about someone and their interests and then ask them for money and then follow up with them in a diligent way and and provide for them the answers that they need to discern about their decision. Well, you have to do that. And so like I think part of part of that leadership is making it possible and being vulnerable in yourself to take a major gift officer with you on something that you're doing in terms of a request or what you're doing and model that behavior so that you can talk about it after. And by the way, it shouldn't be all the things that you did right in that meeting. It's probably more important to say, listen, in that meeting, here's what I did that I could have done better. And here's what I regret saying or what I should have said as learning opportunities for that person. And it's that vulnerability that helps to build the relationship with that individual and helps to lead them, but also makes it so that they have the opportunity then to make those same mistakes or to follow their own path to doing the right things, knowing that you're not this perfect person that says you've got to do X, Y, and Z and then go out and do it and then you judge them when they come back, right? So I think that's an
Yeah,
example.
it is. Oh, it's wonderful. And when you think about building a high performing philanthropy team, what core principles guide you in that?
That I think that concept has changed for me over time. I would have, if you had asked me that question 10, 15 years ago, I think I would have quoted like some behaviors or uh like professional proficiencies that I thought were really important for a major gift officer. And I think like, you know, um some of those would be like a really good communicator, right? Both written and verbally. Someone that cares about talking to someone or asking questions, right?
Mhm.
Or someone who asks more questions than they do want to talk. Um, or someone that's very goal oriented and driven to pursue some objective, right? I mean, part of what I find great about some of what we do is like the numbers are the numbers, right? You either raise the money or you don't. And at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
there's a scorecard.
yeah, at the end of the day, there's at least one measure of how well you're doing. So I enjoy that, but I think if you're only focused on that, you can get yourself into some trouble. I think where my thoughts on this have evolved is that um, I for someone to be successful, I think really it's about their enthusiasm and their interest in what they are doing. And whether you're on the consulting side of it or you're you're a major gift officer at an organization, like you have to personalize what you are doing. And if you're an MGO, it's you really have to talk about the impact of what you're asking that individual to do in a relatable way, right? So, yes, return on investment and impact measurements, all those things are really important, and you can make sure to communicate those. But for someone to relate to you, they need to feel some sort of personal connection, or they need to hear it in a way in which they can digest it. And it's not
Mhm.
statistic after statistic or like script bullet point after script bullet point. Like you need to be able to take what you are talking about and make it human in your way, in your specific personalized way. that's one. Two is I also think like part of the, they say philanthropy and fundraising is a little bit of art and science, right? Part of the art, I think, is you, you have to be a pretty good judge and of people's reactions, and you have to listen very closely because each person is a little bit different in what and how you might need to say things to them to A, interest them, or B, compel them to do something. And
Yeah.
I think it's a fun puzzle to figure out as you're doing that. But
Mm.
it takes a lot of awareness, it takes a lot of focus, it takes some listening, and it takes the ability to, like I've worked with people where they're very good at the timeline, right? They have a timeline in their head, and they can give you the timeline of the evolution of the organization, right, from beginning to end. And that's great. But like if you do that for every person, it's not going to land for every person or as many as it could. You have to be able to
Mhm.
chunk up the timeline and make it relevant in different ways, in different spots, and start in the middle and then go back to the beginning and go to the end or start at the end. And so there's just you have to have the command and the ability, the art to be able to describe what it is you need to in the best way for that person to receive it. And it's really important to understand or think about or spend some time figuring out how they need to receive that information for it to land for them. That was a good
Yeah,
tangent. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I got on a
No, no,
roll.
no. It was great. I mean, and so many thoughts flow through my head, like, being a chameleon in a way, adapting to the circumstances of the situation and the personalities and being able to change your approach. Um, for the relevant individual. The idea you said timeline, I was thinking process and being able to move pieces around to fit the puzzle as opposed to
Hmm.
just sort of it's not sequential, it's not 1 through 10. There might be a five at the end or the beginning or whatever. And the other thought that went through my head was this idea of it seemed like you were talking about EQ, which is so valuable, but EQ is limiting because EQ almost suggests that you're just able to appreciate or understand certain feelings and emotions, as opposed to then being able to use that to craft, the right narrative, the right response, and move things to a strategic end that might be five or six chess moves on the board into the future. So,
Hmm.
wow, right? I mean, so you're looking for, many would say, um, a unicorn in a way, right? And I think for some people that's the way it feels because it requires a lot of talent, right? But those kinds of people are out there, and there's a lot of them. You've found them, we've all found them, and they're definitely out there. Um, but I'd love to know, like, as we continue to think about sort of the team, how you balance mission, how you balance metrics, and then you balance morale together. Like, how do those all work together?
Yeah, I mean there does need to be a balance. And I wouldn't profess to have a formula about it. I just think you have to have all of that. Um, and and they're connected, right? So they're not separate. So if you're talking about metrics, right? Um, one of the things that we do a lot of, and I think this is an example of that, is like, when you and so if a bunch of people steal this idea and I see people doing the same thing, then I'll know it came from this podcast. That is like when we make requests, right? We make them for a specific amount as we've all been taught. But for us, that specific amount is tied to a very specific need. So like we ask for some really weird numbers. It's not just $500,000 or $1 million or $10 million. It's like 7,975,000. Like we strange numbers that are not divisible by five. They're not
Right.
round numbers, right? So and we do that because it is based on the need. What is needed for that thing for us, that ministry, and it's tied to what we are doing and what our mission is. And my point behind that is that when you start to talk about the metrics, whatever it is, 5 requests per week or 150 meaningful contacts in a month, whatever the metric is, it has to be tied to something related to the mission and why. So they're not separate conversations. They're, listen, we have, and again, Catholic Leadership Institute is a Catholic apostolate, so it's a specific audience. So it's like we have 25 priests that are waiting to go through our priest formation program. This is what it costs, and they are ready to start in October. So in the next 2 months, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why these metrics are the metrics. They're not pulled out of a hat. They're not because, you know, Princeton University is making 150 meaningful contacts a month as their metric. We're not. That's not the reason. The reason is we need to do X, Y, and Z, and therefore, based on some science as part of philanthropy and fundraising, here are the activity metrics that we need to meet in order to put ourselves in a position to say yes to those 25 priests.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, I'd love to know a little bit about your process and approach for hiring and managing fundraisers. It's probably changed over the years, but as you think about how you approach this work of hiring, you approach this work of managing, what does that kind of look like? You don't have to be so specific and granular, but just um, a good sort of scan of what it looks like to hire and manage today for you.
Well, let's start with the hiring. I think the hiring and manager are separate topics, but let's start with the hiring, right? So, I mean, I think what we approach it from specifically with major gifts type positions. And by the way, like we had the title for a long time of major gift officer at CLI, but we changed it. We changed it to mission catalyst because I just think it sort of fits
Awesome.
better with what it
So
is
good.
now.
I've always struggled with that, Chad. I've always struggled with the titles of our fundraisers. I mean, could there be anything more grotesque than the title of like principal gifts? Like, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you because you're not a principal gifts candidate, you know? I mean, it's just weird, but that I digress. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right, 100%. And so that's how we got to that. Now, ironically, when we are hiring, oftentimes we'll have to say mission catalyst slash major gift officer. Otherwise, people won't look at it.
Good point. Touche.
Um, so you have to be a little bit careful on how you market it. But I think we generally start really wide, right? And so, and this has not changed for me over the years, I don't think, which is I, I don't necessarily care how much experience you have as quote a major gift officer. I think these days in this industry, there are so many people that have major gift officer on their resume, and they would have the metrics and numbers that anyone would say, "Oh yeah, they're a good major gift officer." That it's almost like it's not a distinguishing characteristic anymore. And so I think we go a little bit wider and we'll interview people that don't necessarily have quote fundraising experience because we're looking for those things that I mentioned before, that ability to talk to someone and figure out how they need to receive some information rather than quote the timeline. So I think we do start wide. Now, has that always worked? No. I would be the first to tell you that we have hired some people without fundraising experience and they flamed out for whatever reason. And it may have been lack of experience, it may not have been. So it's not a perfect model, but I think starting wider allows you to find some of those people that maybe are getting into this for the right reasons, but maybe from something else, or they're uniquely skilled in relating to people and talking to people, and you can always teach them the fundraising part of this. So I think we start pretty wide in our searches and use the interview process then to narrow it down a little bit. And I'm a big fan of putting people through exercises during the interview process that are specific to what they are going to be doing in their role.
Nice.
And it being a process, right? And this may be different organizations, but for us, like people will tell you that the interview process at CLI and in particular to become a mission catalyst or be on the philanthropy team is an arduous, often long journey. I mean, it's like 6 or 9 months. Now, do we lose people because it is that? 100%. But I think if you can't make it through a 6 or 9 month sort of discernment process with us, and we are discerning you in the role, and you are discerning working here,
That's
then
great. Like,
you're not gonna be around very long, and it's not worth either of our time or investment to hire you. So we'll do things like have them do a mock solicitation on Zoom with one of our actual donors, and we will record it. And then, as part of the interview, debrief, give them feedback. They talk about what they said and why they said it and what was good, what was bad. So we put them through the process of actually doing that. We give them information so that they can then make a presentation to that person. We have them make a presentation to us as part of the process, like they would at a reception for sort of new prospects or new potential donors. So we put them through things that are specific to what they would do in their role to see how they perform in that way, in that moment, in the similar things that they're going to be doing
very good.
as a job.
Sorry to break in, but it was interesting because I know there are some listeners who are going to balk at the idea of having to demonstrate their chops to prove their worth in that way to try out as you've just explained. But you think about all of the professions where you have to try out. And it's interesting because I've never drawn this comparison before, but an orchestra performer will sit in front of a panel and perform
Mm-hmm.
and try out. And in some ways, as strange as it sounds, fundraising is a performing art.
Mm-hmm.
It's a performance. It is some way that you are creating a performance in the ask in the relationship, and I could maybe sort of have a whole nother conversation with you about how this is performance. But anyway, I mean, I think I value the idea that we should take these interviews and these conversations in this process as seriously as an orchestra would to find their, chief violinist or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I mean, I think you're dead on. If someone doesn't want to go through that, then that's an indication as to maybe they're not very good at it, right? If we're going to put you through that process and you're good at it, wouldn't you relish that opportunity to show that and to perform in that way? Because it's going to set you apart from other people, right? If you do it
Yeah.
well and you perform well, so it's a chance to get the job, right? Versus balk at it as a tryout, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just think there needs to be an openness to certain positions that should require a tryout of sorts.
Mhm.
And I think fundraising, at least the frontline
Mhm.
fundraising, seems to be a natural position that should demand that kind of talent check, if you will.
Mhm.
So thanks for emerging that
Yeah,
for
in
me.
case he listens to this, I have to thank the donor that does these for us. He and I hatched the idea over lunch one time as I was bemoaning the process for hiring major gift officers, and he's been a gift to us in that. I mean, he's probably gone through now 30 or more mock solicitations with our candidates on Zoom. So he's dedicated a lot of volunteer time to us. I'm just grateful that he's willing
Well,
to
it's
do that.
amazing, and
Yeah.
that consistency allows you or allows him to understand his ranking of folks.
Mhm.
Um, just like I had clients who I worked with for decades and put many different staff through their doors, and they would rank their favorite to least favorite
Yeah.
consultant that they worked with,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, well, you're asking a parent to agree with you about their, favorite kid or something.
Right.
They're all favorites to me, but anyway. Um, so what about like the managing part of it? We talked a little bit about the hiring. Is there something similar that you can offer in terms of the management? Not a fulsome kind of overview of how you manage, but some hacks maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is a hack, but I think it's important to ask um, the people that you work with, right? Like what they need to be successful. And in some cases, part of managing is both listening to that and identifying that with them, but also suggesting to them, what about this? Right. So part of understanding them is maybe what you think they need to be successful as part of that process, in addition to what they are looking for. I do think, you know, creating a team environment where there's communication and transparency and all those things that you would expect. But I think more than having that as a concept is showing that through how you operate, right? So, you know, at CLI we do a lot of work on ourselves and our own leadership, because leadership is in the title, obviously. So we have to think about it and spend time on it. And one of the things that, you know, that I get feedback about is like I need to spend more time with individuals talking about things in addition to work, or what the metrics are, or what professional development they're looking for, right? So I think listening to and giving people that you work with the opportunity to share feedback on working with you is a really important aspect of being a part of a team or managing a team, if you will. And so,
Mhm.
where you can get that specific feedback and where you can implement that to address that feedback is a great example that you are setting as a leader, because that's what you want them to do, right? When you go to a meeting with them and you afterwards sit down and talk about that meeting, you're going to give them some feedback on what it is they did and what it is you want them to do moving forward. And if you haven't shown them that you can do that same thing, then you can't really expect them to do that. And so, you know, that's part of that leadership and that modeling that needs to happen. And so I think demonstrating that you are open to that, and that having those conversations and that dialogue is a really important aspect of that management. I think also making it fun, right? So making it fun and entertaining. And you know, we do team activities all the time. I mean, I've been go-kart racing with our team. We did an escape room recently. We have Christmas parties. So I think the team building aspect of it
That's great.
is really important, and allows people to develop those relationships that are stronger than just I work with you and I'm going to respond to you on the work email only kind of a thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I've always been a proponent of fun in the workplace, and that's such a good reminder. You're speaking into some of these retention mechanisms, right? I think the fun is maybe not the most important, but a key element of helping people um, stay or stick with the organization. Obviously, there's some mission alignment that's necessary. But I did want to get into our conversation about retention of MGOs, because it is a persistent challenge in our sector. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know if you have any clear thoughts about why retention is so challenging in our sector. Can you point to, a couple things?
Well, I guess I can point to the fact that we have struggled with retention, and so it has happened to us. And you know, maybe some of them are that maybe they dislike me, but some of them weren't around long enough to get to know me to dislike me. So it's like, what is the issue? I think part of it is, um, it, there has been a lot of growth, right? There's been I mean, what is it? What's the number now? How many registered not-for-profits in the United States? Like 1.8 million or something?
At least,
Maybe,
right?
yeah. So,
By the time people hear it, it'll be over two, right? It'll be an outdated
right.
number the minute you say it.
Right. And for years, we've all talked about major gift programs and how effective they are, and that's where you want to spend your money. So as a result, there's every not-for-profit has some sort of major gift program that they're focused on and are looking for major gift professionals to help them. And they're just like rapid fire. And so any major gift officer is getting bombarded with opportunities to increase their compensation, to change the size of the organization that they're working with. Like if you think big organizations are better, you're going to go to a big organization. Things like tuition assistance, right? So universities offering tuition assistance these days. When you consider the cost of a degree in higher education, like that's a lot of compensation, right? So if people are getting free
Dang,
tuition
you're right.
as
You're
part of
right.
it, like that's a really hard level to compete with because that's a lot of money these days. It's not a $10,000 tuition. So, it's things like that it's a competitive marketplace. And so people are looking to advance and are looking to develop their own skills, and they have tons of opportunities to do that. And more you can go from one place to the other, and people will take you because they're looking for major gift officers. They don't care that you jumped around every 2 years. They'll take
Right.
they'll take you for 2 years and use what they can, or just play the lottery that you might stay longer than that. Which goes
Right.
which goes back to sort of my point about, like, when we look at the hiring, like, part of it is looking at and identifying that person's interest in our mission and what we are doing, and tying it back to that, because if that is not there, then they're automatically a flight risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are the costs for you of turnover? Like, how do
Oh,
you perceive turnover, and do you believe that it actually begins before they're even hired? I mean, is there something in the person that would lead you to believe that you should have known that they were going to leave?
that's hard. I don't know about the before. Sure, there's potential for that, and it's hard. Some of it is a gut instinct, right, and a personality fit, and those things. And um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm sorry. I should have not conflated those two questions because the first one is the more important one, which is the cost of
Yeah,
turnover.
the costs are enormous, and like it almost impossible to quantify, because you take the people that major gift officer was working with during whatever time they were with you, and potentially losing their gifts because they've lost the person that they liked or that they were working with, right? You've got your own time, right? Because chances are, if you're the leader,
Yeah,
you're going to have to make up for whatever they're not covering and take it back. That's after you've already spent the time to transition it to them, right? So you spent the time helping them gain this portfolio or this group of donors and prospects that they're working with. So you invest
right.
time into that. So you've got your time transitioning them in, you've got your time transitioning them out. You've got the money fact of donors, right? Who may or may not continue supporting because they participated with them. You've got whatever training you put into them during that process. You've got the organizational time that's put into onboarding a person and bringing them up to speed and paying them and paying their insurance. And you've got the cost of whatever sort of exit. Uh, what's the right term? Isn't there a term for it when, like, you help people leave the place?
Yeah. Yes, and you put me on the spot, so I'm not gonna get it.
Whatever the HR
Severance,
the HR podcast will cover that.
severance, severance,
Yes,
severance.
whatever the severance package is that you're providing for them. So, I mean, and that's just, and then, I mean, and then you add the time to, if you do it often enough, then you've got board members who are going to start to ask questions around what's happening and why you can't keep anyone in the major gift officer position. So, like, I could go on for days about the
You
cost.
can. Yeah, 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 yeah. And whether it's compensation, it's leadership issues, unclear expectations, the culture, or whatever it is unfortunate that it could be one of those things. It could be all of those things. It could be something that we haven't identified. And to your point, there are more options. There's better pay probably in other places. There's faster promotions. I've always been fascinated by how many failed fundraisers can fail upward in their career. I used to joke with that with my dad all the time because he was a consultant as well, and we'd always sort of point out the people that we thought were failing upwards in fundraising. And it's one of the few places where you can fail upwards over a career. But I think in order to limit the 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 number of qualified, talented major gift officers that leave, not the ones you want to leave, but the ones you want to keep, um, it seems like you have to set them up for success from the very beginning. And I wondered what kind of sort of efforts you think are important to set major gift officers up for success, maybe even before they start on day one.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind right away is one, I do think that interview process, that discernment period is really important. And that is setting them up for success. That is part of the process of setting them up for success, right? So
Good.
if someone is willing to go through a 6 or 9 month process, then they're more likely to be interested in staying, right? I
Mhm.
think, than if it's a 2 week process and they have 10 jobs that they're considering and they take the best one of those 10 in that 2 week period. I just think that that makes it easy for them to leave whenever they want. I think that's before. I think once they get there, the things that we talked about in terms of professional development, I would say that whether it's like a director of major gifts or it's a senior major gift officer, whomever the person is, I think it's really important to spend time with them early on doing the things that you want them to do to be successful. So like
Good.
in my goals, my individual goals for the year, because we are hiring major gift officers, is, you know, attending or participating in X number of meetings per year with Mission Catalysts, because that's a it's that transition process. B, it's modeling what you're looking for them to do, and C, it's spending the time with them to show that you are interested in their development, that you want to help them. And if you're spending time with them, then you're also helping them with their portfolios and thinking through those things. You have time to talk about
Yeah.
strategy. So it sort of forces what you want, which is spending some time with them, investing in them, especially early on, and providing whatever training they need. I would admit to having hired some people and being just a couple months behind in providing them with the training that they needed. And ultimately, it led to their failure. And that was my fault because I just didn't get to it fast enough or
Wow. Yeah.
recognize fast enough that they needed a specific type of training. And me not getting it to them meant that they were set up to fail. And so I think getting those individuals whatever training or development opportunities they need early on in that process is really important.
Yeah, I love that. So there's a bunch of things that go on in my mind about setting someone up for success and making sure that they have the, at least not optimal, but sufficient setup. There's portfolio size, makeup, clarity around their portfolio. There's having realistic expectations. There's having internal systems in place. There's the leadership alignment. Are any of these things like more important than the other? Are they all equally important? How do you kind of, when you hear me say those things, how do you react when you think about retention of major gift officers?
I think they're all important. I guess the two things that I think would be that would stand out in my mind is one, like helping them with it, right? So helping them with their portfolio. So helping them make some progress early on. So being involved in them, if they've got, like whatever the number is, 10, 15 donors who are really ready for the next gift and you've known them or didn't know them, it doesn't really matter. But you as the leader who is helping them to be successful, sort of usher them through that process so that they can get some early wins, get some confidence, spend the time with you to learn how you do it is really important. I think it's not helpful to sort of hand them a portfolio, no matter how clear or how delineated or how process set up it is. If you just hand it to them and want them to go do it, that's not going to set them up for success in most cases. So I think sort of shepherding them through some early work in their portfolio is really important as part of that process.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great. That's great. Like what management behaviors would you say keep strong MGOs engaged?
ask that question again.
What management behaviors keep strong MGOs engaged? Like, what do you do to help keep your major gift officers really engaged and connected and enthusiastic about the role?
I guess one of the things that I like to use is when you get busy, I think you think less about this. Like if I'm busy and someone asks me a question, I give them the answer. I don't think that's the best way to handle it, right? So I think for a major gift officer and for retention and for their growth, like when they come and they ask a question, whatever it is, it's related to their portfolio or something, the proposal, what like don't just give them the answer, because that doesn't help them. And then
Hmm.
therefore they don't feel the ownership. They don't feel like they participated in the solution, because if you walk them through the process and help them develop the answer, here's what happens, right? They think about it. So they're getting better. They learn some strategy. You can think through it with them. They're a participant, and you're not just saying do X, Y, and Z. So then they feel ownership of the thing that they're going to do as a result of the question or the solution to the challenge. And then they implement it and they own it. So they actually care about it more and do it better, because they're then the ones that it's their answer, it's their solution that you came up with together. And it might not be, I'm not suggesting that you just let people answer their own questions without any guidance. I just think you have to take them through the process of answering their own question and getting to an answer that you as the manager or leader or supervisor are comfortable with, but
Right.
allowing them to own that process and to make it their solution that they then implement and learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's so good. When you think about the successful major gift officers that you work with, um, do you find the greatest value in relationship building ability? Is it emotional intelligence? Is it strategic thinking? Is it mission alignment? Like what in your mind sets the really outstanding major gift officers apart from the rest?
I, I think that they have to be curious. Like they have to be curious about why or what drives the person that they're talking to, and why they are even entertaining a meeting with you to talk about X, Y, and Z, and why they're a donor they've given to that organization. Like I
Yeah.
find that those that don't do well, they're not curious, and they don't enjoy the process of figuring out those things and asking those questions in order to come up with the way that helps facilitate the process of those individuals having the most impact on the thing that they love.
Hmm. Yeah. So you're looking actively for people that express curiosity, interest, a desire to know more, figure out how things work, that kind of thing, right?
And when they show up on Zoom for the first time, they smile. But
Ah,
they have a smile, right? So it drives me crazy that,
that's interesting.
oh, I mean, the number of people where you're doing an introduction. So I'm gonna get on a tangent, but so just smiling. I mean, I think it is it is a simple, you may say stupid thing, but if someone comes on for an interview and doesn't smile in the first 10 seconds, I'm pretty close to tuning out. The second thing is, if your introduction takes 20 minutes, I'm all done and you're not getting the job.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. I mean, there are so many little um, ways, some insignificant, some more significant, that you can turn off a hiring manager or a prospective donor by doing the same things, by making the same mistake that you would make in an interview with a prospective donor, right? I mean, and I think in some ways, what's so difficult is that fundraisers should be the best interviewers
Yeah.
or interviewees, I should say. They should be so good at convincing you that you should be hired because the talent that they're supposed to have is relatability, emotional quotient, the way to kind of figure out how to win your confidence.
Mhm.
And so some of those things that you mentioned are a surefire way to lose that. Yeah. Um, okay, so two kind of final questions. One is on the first 90 days, like onboarding. Are there recommendations that you would make to kind of get someone off to a good start, and then how do you sustain that?
I think it would go back to a making sure you understand or learn what are some of the things that they need to develop in terms of skills. Like what did they come to you with and
Yeah.
what do they need, and giving that to them quickly. Because as I said, I made the mistake of not doing that fast enough and set those people up for failure.
Yeah.
I think it's the spending the time with them. So when you hire someone, I think it's really important to spend time with them intentionally in a work environment and also as part of what goes along with that, right? So if you're an organization that's anything but local, there's opportunities for travel and things like that. So I think watching how they handle like the rental car process, right? If like they have difficulty managing the rental car process, well, that's a little bit of a clue, and you're gonna have to do some work to help them through what it takes to travel around the country and get a rental car and go from flight to flight, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, spending some time with them is really important in those first 90 days. And as I mentioned, personally shepherding them through the process of beginning to work on their portfolio.
Yeah, that's great. So, just some final reflection questions for executive leaders listening right now. What's an additional action item they should take to improve major gift retention?
I guess I would just make sure that you're asking the question of major gift officers, like on a regular basis, like how can we make this more fulfilling for you, or what can we do to help make this fun for you? Having a dialogue, asking some questions of the major gift officers or the people that are working for you that allow them that opportunity to tell you.
I love that. I love that. And for the major gift officers listening, what advice would you give them about discerning whether an organization is the right fit for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really got to think about like as you are preparing for the interview, like would you give to this? Is this something that you are excited about? Like if they were approaching you and asking you to give money, would you? And if the answer is no or maybe, then I would not pursue it because it's not going to go well.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's such an amazing question for a major gift officer to ask themselves before they jump into a job, before they jump into an organization, because they're going to be required to sell this mission, this organization for, oh, ideally a long time. So I think it's probably the most important question. And it might be a question you start asking too, is like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how how confident are you that you'd give to this
Hmm.
organization? I love that. It's so good. So, okay, one final thought. Uh, what would you tell us about leadership and stewardship of talent that maybe we should take with us, a great leave behind, a last bit of advice for the audience?
I, I, it would go back to being a little bit vulnerable, right? So as a person, and I'm not great at this. So I work on this every day, but I think in order to retain the right people, you yourself personally have to have some level of vulnerability around who you are and your leadership, and be honest about that with those individuals. And the this is taking a very serious thing and making it sound transactional, but the mileage that you will get out of that is extraordinary. And I think is a big deal, and oftentimes something that people are scared of or avoid because they think it's not being a strong leader if you yourself are vulnerable. And I'll give you an example of this, which is I said as part of this that we've struggled with major gift officer retention, and it's one of the things that I talk about with major gift officer candidates as part of the interview process and share with them, because sometimes they'll ask anyway, like, what is this, a new position, like why are you hiring, etc. If they haven't asked the question, I will share with them that it has been difficult for us and that we have had several people that have not made it in this role, and here's what they told us about why they moved on, and just being
Yeah.
vulnerable about it with those individuals from the get-go to say, listen, we're not perfect, but we are trying, and we think you'd be a good fit, but here in all honesty are some of the reasons that people have left in the past. So I think that vulnerability goes a long way and is something that these days might be somewhat less frequent in terms of a leadership or management style.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure candidates appreciate that authenticity and transparency coming from you. It probably means a great deal to them as well. So Chad, thank you for sharing your experience and your candor. This conversation definitely reinforces something for me that I deeply believe, which is hiring well and leading well are inseparable when it comes to retaining major gift officers. For the audience, if you found today's episode helpful and valuable, I would ask you to subscribe. I'd ask you to share this conversation with colleagues, and obviously continue investing in your growth as a fundraising leader. Until next time, keep mastering your craft and leading with clarity and confidence. Thanks for listening and see you all soon.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.